Welcome to another edition of Naked Lunch. I am Bob Sluys. And are you ready to get naked? All right, let's bring on our guest, the always mysterious Madam X. Oh, Madam X, here she is, folks. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
That's a great looking mask, by the way. I'm fine. Thanks for asking.
Thanks.
So, you are up in the Northwest. We're not going to get super specific, but this is something that has divided our nation in many ways, not just politics, but our reaction to what's happening out there. And you're sort of right in the middle of it, communicating with frontline responders, all of that. So without me talking too much further, why don't you give us a little background on what you do, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so I work in a large communication center for a police department. We dispatch police and medical assistance along with fire assistance. We also have non-police that we actually work with as well. They're called like community officers, but they're not like sworn. It's for a very, very large city, and we have had lots of upheaval in this past year. And so it's been a huge learning curve for everybody, but it's also been extremely stressful that behind the scenes, a lot of people don't know about.
Oh, I can imagine. We all see the news reports. The problem with the news reports, like when we were talking earlier, is they show us what they want to show us. And where do we go to get the real scoop? We can't watch the CSI shows about, you call 911 and, they go down there and there's all the body bags and this and that. But up in the Northwest this past summer, especially with all the protests and the riots, and you were in the front and center in that. How were you guys prepared? Right. First question is, did it catch you by surprise? Were you prepared for that?
We always have a contingency plan for some things, but with the pandemic, with the social upheaval, with everything that was going on, it has stretched us to the max, and we had to do a lot of things on the fly, and we had to change a lot of policies, unfortunately, almost daily. So you never knew what you were walking into on a daily basis.
You probably talked to your coworkers or all the people involved in the various aspects of first responding. What was the number one overriding from a emotional, spiritual, mental aspect? You're out there physically, but did this wear people down the way that we were hearing? And what were you hearing behind the scenes?
Is that we were forgotten. We were uncared for. We were expected to show up and do our job, but you really weren't supposed to have any type of emotion. And you weren't really a human at that point. You were just a cog in a wheel, and you had to show up.
And that's what people did.
Yeah. But we had to. We didn't have a choice.
No choice. How are you prepared to deal with, I know the riots in Portland were especially bad, Seattle, that occupation on Capitol Hill, so on and so forth. So your colleagues, your coworkers' lives were in danger, and yet you were sort of, brushed aside. In fact, defunding the police. How did that go over? What was the discussion like amongst your workers about that?
Yeah, so the big thing is that we are not considered first responders. We are considered essential workers because there has to be a minimum on staff in order to take all these calls and dispatch people. But we're not considered first responders. So we didn't really have the funding. So people are working 8, 12. There were some people that volunteered for 16-hour shifts because during this time, we're working in close quarters and there might be protests outside, but we can't leave. So you're coming to work with people protesting, but you can't cross the line for your fear because you may be caught in the middle of it. So it's stressful. It's you go to work not knowing what you're getting into, and when you come to work, the support that you would normally get, say if you worked at McDonald's, you could walk up to your manager and talk to them and say, "Hey, I'm having a bad day. This is what's going on." But sadly, our management wasn't there. So we have to be there. We can't work from home, but yet the upper echelon, if you will, of our workforce isn't there. So we're working boots on the ground, and we're expected to be there, and don't really bitch about it.
So what you're trying to say is this was not a hoax.
No.
Have you been back?
It was definitely not a hoax.
Okay. Maybe this cuts a little close, but did you lose friends, colleagues due to the pandemic, or even in the riots themselves?
We lost friends who were injured in the riots. That was the big thing. When it came to the pandemic, I personally didn't know anybody firsthand that was affected. But because there are people in the workforce who are more susceptible to coming down with it, they couldn't work. So then that takes numbers off the floor. So then they were, being quarantined, and the city itself was allowing people to stay home who were more at risk. So then it just kind of put more stress on everybody else. So luckily, yes, people were diagnosed and they got positive tests, but I'm very, very thankful that we, in the community that I work in, we didn't lose anybody firsthand.
Okay, well that's certainly good to hear. Going back to the defunding the police, you're part of that. How is that going to help anything? Mm-hmm. And are the police the right people to handle things that are nonviolent crimes? For example, the Black Lives Matter thing, the episode up where the trial is happening now, where a murder took place. How was that dealt with and discussed?
Well, the big thing is that a lot of people forget that we're people too. So we also have opinions and feelings that may not totally affix with police values, because we're all still human. So we were getting phone calls from people out of state, out of country, yelling and blaming us and calling us pigs and calling us antichrist and horrible things. Yeah. But I don't think they realize that we're not cops answering the phone, that we're civilian, just like everybody else. So it's pretty stressful. And as far as the defunding goes, that is a huge part, because we're part of public safety. 911, communications, any type of getting assistance out to people is part of public safety. They need a phone number to call, but yet they want to take away all of our money. So who then is going to answer the call? Who is going to send the police?
Yeah.
And the big joke is that, okay, they want social workers to go out there and assist people with personality issues or behavioral crisis issues, which is a great idea, but you can't send a social worker out to someone who's 6'8", who's completely high on meth or heroin, who's naked and wielding swords. That's not going to happen. That's sending the tooth fairy to an army, right? Like that's not going to happen.
I don't mean to laugh. I remember years ago, I was down here in Vegas. Maybe I shouldn't tell the story, but I was selling a house to a police officer, a cop. And one day we were looking at some property, and he sort of looked, banged up a little bit. And I go, what happened? He goes, yeah, we were on a call last night, and it was a repeat. It's someone we'd been at before. And this guy was 6'2", 6'3", young kid, strong, right, and, healthy and all that kind of good stuff. And I go, well, so what the other guy look like? He goes, oh, no, this guy was humongous, high on drugs, naked, took me and my partner, we're wrestling him to the ground. It was in July. It's 118 degrees outside, and he's just completely high. And, he described parts of that encounter that I'm not going to repeat, but he certainly didn't enjoy certain body parts flying around and this and that. So, we don't see that kind of stuff. We don't hear about that kind of stuff,
Right.
And, although I will say that I think a better use of the police force would be like not writing traffic tickets, speeding tickets, parking tickets. Now, I mean,
Right,
so I've
right.
heard. Friends have told me that. But going back to you specifically. By the way, how long have you been doing this line of work?
I've been at this specific comm center for over 13 years.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're no longer answering phones. You're in a management position. Is that correct?
I'm in a supervisory position, but when needed, I have still answered phones and I have still dispatched officers because it's when there's a hole that needs to be filled and you can't get someone, you have to do it.
Okay, so let me ask you something. Are you portrayed fairly? Okay, there's instances of someone in a panic, there's a situation, they call 911, and then the 911 dispatcher very calm and okay, so and then they start a casual conversation while the victim is like blood is pumping out, and it's in other words, how do you discern how to and then because you didn't respond properly, the person dies, and now it's your fault because all that
Right.
kind of thing. I mean, you've got to make split-second decisions and everything. Have you had those kind of instances before?
Yeah, exactly. You get trained. It's not like we just walk off the street, and I think that's what a lot of people forget too and I think that's part of the whole defunding thing is they don't want to pay us for our knowledge and our experience. They could just think people can walk off the street, but you can't.
Yeah.
We're trained to listen to the cues in the background when you're on the phone and you hear someone screaming. We're trained to listen and try and figure out what the person is actually saying when they're ordering a pizza, but they're trying to tell us there's domestic violence. We have to try and figure out where they are because people don't know where they are.
Yeah.
They can live in a city their entire life. And when something happens and you ask them, where are you? They're looking around and they can't tell you. So you got to try and figure out. It's a lot of training. We have to remain calm because you can't get dragged into whatever is happening on that phone call. A good example is a few years ago, I was taking a phone call and it was a domestic violence. And I'm talking to a 12-year-old child who is trying to protect their 6 and 7-year-old brother and sister while watching their mom get beaten.
Wow.
I can't get emotional at that point. I have to try and figure out how to have this 12-year-old tell me where she is so I can get police there to stop her dad from beating up her mom and get medics there for her mom who's now bleeding from the head on the back porch.
Wow. Yeah, no, I can't imagine. My next question would be regarding the workers and even yourself. We've been into this for a year now. We've been quarantined. You go into an office in essence. You can't work out of your house, like you said.
Right.
But so many people are now working out of their homes and homeschooling on and on. Kids are home. Income is, we're becoming nut jobs. What kind of lasting emotional impact? You get to get out of the house and drive to work and drive back and maybe stop and grab a burger, whatever. But many people now are facing some serious, as if they were in a war type stress disorders. Are you seeing any of that there at your center?
Yeah, there's some people that have been maxed out and stressed out for the most part because even though we're still driving to work, we're kind of like everybody else. Not everything is fully open. So we are very, very thankful and lucky that we are still getting a paycheck because we're still coming to work. But we're also exposing ourselves more now because I know when I get off work, I go home and I stay home. But I don't know if my employee next to me is going out and partying with all of their friends. So we work with 20 plus people in a room. I can't say that every single one of those people are going home and staying solitary and quarantined, or if they might bring something into the center. So it's stressful because you don't know what your neighbor, what your coworker is doing. But I do appreciate and realize that we are lucky because we are getting out of the house and we are still working.
Yeah. By the way, when did you? How early did you get your vaccine? Or wait a minute,
So
you did get it, right?
I was lucky enough to get it because of the county that I live in. I was able to qualify for it. But with that being said, I only got my vaccine a month ago.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So even though we're still expected to come to work and we're essential workers and we have to be there, and we're getting exposed from the criminals that are coming in when they're getting arrested from the officers downstairs, and the officers are getting exposed.
Ah.
We're getting exposed, but we're not important enough to be put on a list for our management to try and get us vaccines.
So they don't keep you isolated, your department, the cops can't come up and hang or whatever, or is there just sort of a lot of interaction?
Yeah, so the best thing that they thought they could do for us is they put up paper signs that say "Don't come in."
Oh, I bet those work really good, huh?
They do, yeah. They
Okay.
100% foolproof,
All
yeah.
right.
So we work in a locked room, but the officers still have access to it, and people still cut through to go to other parts of the building that they have to get to. So we're not completely isolated like we would be, say, if we were at home or in a completely separate building without anyone interacting with us.
So, how's this going to, from you, and again, we're specifically talking about you working in a communication center, and all of us
Right.
throughout society, we all have different careers, jobs. Everyone's handling things differently, whether teachers, the clerk at the store, the things that I do. Musicians here in Vegas, they're dying because most of the shows aren't. There's nothing going on. How's this gonna turn out now that we're getting vaccines out there, or are you in a position where things have gotten so politicized and so divided and all that? Can you see? I don't know about myself. I don't see a new normal. I think we have a new environment. I'm not sure I would call it normal. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get back to normal. Right now, it's trying to find the vaccines for my employees to make sure that they can still come to work. And then you have supervisors that don't think we should be getting vaccines, that we're not important enough.
Seriously?
So it's very, very political, because then we also have city council that doesn't really care about us. They've never come to visit, even before the pandemic, even before all this civil unrest. They don't care. They don't really understand what we do, so they're making decisions for us without really knowing the full scope of how it interacts.
So, are you allowed to, back in the old days, there would be the employee suggestion box, and if they took it, you'd get employee of the month. You get like a little plaque or a smiley face or something. Are you allowed to?
Right.
Do they welcome? Because if things continue the way they are, regardless of what you do and where you are, it can't sustain. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, things definitely have to change. I don't think for us, and many centers are the same way. They're run by a city council and the mayor. They have chiefs that they have, multiple chiefs that they have to answer to. They don't want to hear from, and can happen at any workplace, they don't want to hear from the peons. They don't want to hear about the people that actually do the job. They just want to, make a name for themselves and make the best decisions on guesses and what they think is best, but they really don't want to talk to us. So if they were to have an employee suggestion box, man, that thing would be full daily, but I don't think they'd actually want to listen to it.
Yeah, it's interesting. What would the modern version of that be? A text or an email, or however you get it. But if they're not receptive, and I can see that happening in a lot of areas here in Las Vegas, especially. A lot of blaming the governor, for example. Okay, he's Democratic, whatever. I don't care at this point. Just we need results, and because of him, they now are not doing their music gigs, and the shows are shut down, and it's his fault. I attend a church locally that we were shut down by governor orders for a while, and then they said, well, if you do the masks and you do all the social distancing, and the pastor, God bless him, was an entertaining type guy, as many are nowadays, and he just had to get back on stage and do his shtick, and that's fantastic.
Right.
You better have a little bit of showbiz in you, otherwise no one's going to want to come and listen. However, I attended, and masks came off. They had a breakout session after one of his sermons that was in a small classroom, and I was wearing my mask. And I had some health issues back in the day, so I'm a prime candidate for, if I get this stuff, it might not be easy to deal with. Anyway, there were about 25 of us in the room, and I was the only one wearing a mask. And I'm thinking, you know what? You are so zealous about getting back on stage and performing and preaching, even though, yeah, you're doing a good thing, you're putting me at risk. So is that the kind of thing we want to do to each other? The masks, aren't necessarily for spreading as much as getting as well, and that became a problem. So I quit attending there for a while until they get their act together regarding that. And there's tons of blame going around. I'm sure it's up because Washington's a fairly liberal area, Oregon the same, that whole Pacific Northwest area. And I'll bet there's some incredible divisiveness over that. And I'm really anxious to see how that's going to play out and work out, and how our lives are going to be permanently changed. In closing here, do you have any closing thoughts as to where you think things are going, how how the impact is going to move forward, and maybe some hope for things, or some things you would like to see happen?
I would love to have our management actually pay attention to what their workers are doing. And I would love for management to understand that we are sacrificing ourselves by coming out of the house and coming into work and being there because they've been staying home the entire time. I would love to have our management actually care about its employees. For the long run, I don't see this pandemic going anywhere for a while, because unfortunately there are people that believe it's a hoax, that they believe that they don't need the vaccine. So people are people, and unfortunately not everyone is smart or has common sense. So if they just kind of do their own thing, this unfortunately is going to be around for a while. And I hope it's not. I hope things get back to normal, but I don't see it in the near future, and definitely not this year. I think by the end of this year, we're all still going to be wearing masks.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having reached out and giving your perspective as someone who's out there, actually not in the ivory tower or behind a political, name badge or anything, that's actually experiencing the effects of the pandemic. And I think many people feel that way. And in closing, I think there needs to be a level of empathy and encouragement for those, and not even if you have, contracted the actual virus and the disease and recovered, but just, as lives are changing, and to be aware of it and not have our heads in the sand, and be prepared, and all the things, we can do so much, and yet we do so little, and that's incredibly frustrating. So, well, listen, you have a shift starting today. You got to go to work and wrangle some people, and hopefully make a difference.
Yeah, I'm going in for overtime.
Oh,
so
there you go.
It's actually my day off.
Okay.
And I'm going in to be a call taker because they're short staffed.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Madam X, that's a cool. I think you can run with that. Maybe record an album, or do they even have those anymore? Album? What are they using? What do you kids listen to nowadays? It's not an album. No. It's not an 8-track. It's anyway. I'm showing my age here.
Streaming, yeah, Amazon, yeah.
Streaming. Is that what you do? Streaming, right? It's all online. Yeah. Whatever happened to?
It is.
Can you imagine having like a local junior college that has like a professional showbiz training, School of Rock kind of program? Can you imagine that ever having existed, where young kids could go in and sort of learn, showbiz, the ropes, how to hold a mic and work an audience and sell a song? And wouldn't that be cool?
That would be So amazing. I think you need to look into that and tap into that. Maybe start something in Vegas.
I'm gonna call my friend. I got this friend named Jack Black, and he's a famous actor, and maybe he can help me with that. You know, we'll get a group of kids, and we'll just put something together, and maybe go on the road. You know, and
Perfect.
and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll be able to do it without like wearing masks, because you sounded great, or you was all, you know. So that's a hard thing. See, I'm getting old, and my hearing's starting to go. And so I was just learning how to read lips, and then COVID comes along, right? I mean,
right? It's true.
Brutal.
It's true.
Madam X, thanks for your time. It was wonderful. And in closing, this will be posted very shortly on the YouTube channel, Naked Lunch. And be sure to tell your family, friends, anyone you know, get it out there. And there's going to be a diverse group of people that I'm going to be talking to about all sorts of things that hopefully matter a little bit, or that might be fun, or whatever. So I'm honored that you were our very first guest on the show. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And thanks for sharing stuff that's important. It is very important. And keep up the good work.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Stay safe. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, thanks again to Madam X for being our very first guest here on The Naked Lunch, talking about first responders and the stress of having a job sort of stuck in the middle. Can't be easy. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more diverse guests on the blog and the podcast, including a few special surprises I can't tell you about yet. If you are watching this on YouTube, just hit the subscribe and like. You know this stuff. You know it better than me. All you kids are way ahead of me on that. All righty, thanks again. I'm Bob Sluys signing off, and we'll see you on our next episode. Take care.